and it is my favourite book in the entire world. Spoilers, not a thriller. Hey guys, welcome back to Francesca's Books. My name is Francesca, these are my books, and here we talk about all things thriller books. You may notice that my setup is a little bit different. I of course had an unhaul video as my last video as I was taking down my shelves and moving to a new house. I'm now here and actually fully set up. I was going to do a video of like rearranging my books and putting them on the shelf, but I mean, moving is just hard enough as it is, so we are just starting afresh. These are my new shelves. So of course today's video is my June wrap up and July TBR, so we'll start off with all the books that I read in June and what I rated them, and then what I'm hoping to read in July. And spoiler, they're all summer thrillers because the sun is shining, the weather is warm, I'm going on holiday, so if you want a summer thriller, you're in the right place. June was one of the best reading months I've had in a long time, I won't lie. I have 5 that were all 4 or above, which I think is absolutely incredible. I have not had a reading month this good in quite a while, but as I said in my last video, I took loads of your personal recommendations, so I'm also not surprised that I've had a really good reading month at the same time. So without further ado, here's my June reading wrap up. So the first book I read and gave a 4 star to is Next of Kin by Kia Abdullah. I read this one on my Kindle, and it is about a woman who goes to drop her nephew off at daycare but then actually leaves him in the backseat of a car all day while she goes to work in a heat wave. By the time she realises what she's done, it is way too late, and of course he doesn't make it, and the story is like the fallout of that. And Kia Abdullah is very well known as well for her courtroom drama, so there is definitely an aspect of that in it as well. I did really like this book, but I can't really put my finger on why I can't rate it higher. Like, I just didn't reach for it, you know? Like, I was reading it and I was enjoying it, like the concept was good, but I wasn't like super desperate to carry on reading, so overall it was just like a good solid thriller. It's iced coffee season, guys. Are we all happy about that? Because I am. Then next up is actually a reread, so I don't know if this counts as adding to my tally this year, but I mean, I'm counting it. And it is my favourite book in the entire world. Spoilers, not a thriller. And it is Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. With everything going on at the moment, I needed like a rom-com, like just a really happy, simple rom-com story in a book, and I literally just sat and read this cover to cover in one night. I absolutely love it. I rated it 4.5 last time I read it, and this time I rated it 5 star. I just can't fault this. This is just everything you want from a rom-com, so if you're looking for a really good palate cleanser, definitely pick this up. It follows 2 best friends, Josh and Hazel, who set each other up on dates, and they end up going on like double dates together, and then obviously like he becomes really protective of her and like the day that she's on, and it just kind of spirals from there. Then carrying on my Claire Mackintosh binge, I read The Last Party, which is a DC Morgan story. This is the first in this series, and it does of course follow a detective, but there's also a major part of the story elsewhere, but Claire Mackintosh is the only person I trust to write detectives. Ever. So this is set on the Welsh border at like this idyllic lake, and they've just opened these lodges around it that are called the Shore, and they're having a New Year's Eve party. Like, all the residents of the Shore are invited and some of the locals as well, and then someone ends up unalived. I absolutely loved getting to know our main character, Fionn Morgan. She is, what a woman. Like, honestly, she is a woman and a half. I loved it. However, I will caveat this by saying this is probably one of my least favourite Claire Mackintosh books, even though I still rate it 4 star, because I don't know, at the start it was a little bit slow to get going, and I feel like there was a lot of characters introduced quite quickly, and I just had to really trust the process with this one, and I'm so glad I did because I absolutely loved it. But probably until like 70, 80 pages in, I wasn't really sure where it was going or what it was doing, but I think it's because Claire was also trying to set up for our main character to be a series as well, so there's a little bit of that, but I do recommend it and I definitely enjoyed it. And then I liked it so much that I picked up the second book in the Fionn Morgan series, which is Game of Lies, and this is a brand new release from Claire Mackintosh. And this time it's following a survival reality TV show gone wrong. And in this book, our main character again just completely wipes the floor with everyone. She is just a hell of a woman, and her relationship with one of the other detectives over on the English side of the border starts to like progress, and it's just brilliant. The actual thriller side of this book as well was amazing. I had no idea who I thought the actual whodunit aspect of this book was, and yeah, I recommend this series, and Claire's actually writing a 3rd book in the DC Morgan series, so I am literally just like on the edge of my seat. Then the next book is a 4.5. I told you I was having a good reading month. All of these books so far are above a 4 star, like, yes for June. Do you know what I mean? Yes for June. Anyway, the next book I'm going to tell you about, I would definitely say to go in with caution, and please try and read some sort of trigger warnings, because I don't know any trigger warnings that wouldn't need to be included in this book. It is The Echo Man by Sam Holland. And the reason there's so many trigger warnings in this is because it literally follows a serial unaliver who is copying the most famous serial unalivers like MOs over time. So obviously this includes everything. So the story follows our main character Jess, who, when her husband is one of the victims of these serial unalivers, she takes things into her own hands and decides to work out what is going on once and for all. There is a detective side of this as well, like the police are involved, obviously. However, I do feel like the balance of detective to main storyline is really, really good in this, and there's some really well developed characters. This is the first book by Sam Holland that I've actually picked up, and I will definitely be picking up more. I do know the X and the Puppet Master come after this book, and I've heard mixed things about those. I've never heard mixed things about the Echo Man, but the following books I have. So if you've read either of those, let me know whether it's worth picking up the next two. Then easily my most disappointing book of this month was The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. I actually got an advance copy of this, was so excited to read it. You guys know how much I love The Paris Apartment, but this was an absolute flop for me. So it follows Francesca, who hosts a midnight feast at this new luxury manor thing she's opening in like the middle of nowhere, and everything just gets super, super weird. So like everyone starts acting really weirdly, and then with that, the main manor itself sets alight. So there is quite a bit of drama, but all this drama is happening like later on in the book. I don't know exactly when, but very much later on in the book. It actually follows 5 point of views and has 3 timelines as well, I believe. So I mean, my head was just bamboozled, and it wasn't even like any of these characters were like really super likable or you could get behind them and you were like waiting for their next point of view. You were just too busy trying to keep up, to be honest, but not really in a good way. So I gave this book a 2, and that is quite generous, to be honest. I feel like this is definitely my biggest disappointment of everything I've read in 2024 so far. Then the final book that I've read in June is The Rebound by Catherine Walsh, and this is another romance book. I know, please don't come for me. I am a thriller girl still. It's just this one just kind of spoke to me, but I wish it didn't. I ended up giving it a 2.5. It was so disappointing. I was promised this like sexy rebound story, and I thought, yeah, perfect, I need a bit of that. And it just ended up being like a found family story of this girl moving back to Ireland, and I think the description and the cover don't match up to what the actual story is, and I think that's why I wasn't really a fan, because I did read Holiday Romance by Catherine Walsh, this author, over Christmas, and absolutely loved it. I think I gave it a 4.5, and it was brilliant. But this one, there's nothing really wrong with the writing. I just don't think I liked where it went or any of the actions, or yeah, I gave it a 2.5. It's just a bang average book. Coffee break. So on to my July TBR. I actually have 5 physical books I want to read this month and only 1 on Kindle. I've been doing 6 books on my TBR, where I normally read 7 or 8. I've tried to give myself like a little bit more wiggle room nowadays. So we're going to start with a short, snappy book, and it is The Villa by Rachel Hawkins, and this follows a couple of best friends who go to Italy like on a reunion type holiday, and they're staying in a villa that they realise actually has a really dark past. I'm going away at the weekend, so I feel like this is the perfect book to take with me. Like, it's just very holiday vibes, summer vibes, but obviously wrapped up in a thriller. I've read The Wife Upstairs by this author, and I thought it was quite mid. I think I gave it a 3. So I'm excited to give this author another chance and see if that was a one-off, or it's actually just this writing style that I'm not a fan of. But either way, I mean, this cover's pretty nice, you know? Then next up, don't hate me, this was on my June TBR from last month if you watched last month's video, but it is An Eye for an Eye by MJ Aldridge, and I'm definitely gonna get to it this month. I just run out of like headspace in June, basically. So this is being added to July's TBR as well. So this follows 9 serial unalivers who are granted lifelong anonymity after being released from prison for their horrendous crimes. And I think it's a bit of a story of like why these 9 specifically, like why do they get to just live a happy life now and like have no links to their past. I think that's what it's about, and I assume that somebody wants to expose them. But this book has been so highly recommended to me, like in my book shopping videos and in my watch I read next videos, like everyone's always like, this one, please read this one, so I'm going to in July. Next up is my designated romance palette cleanser, and this month it is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I adored the Part of Your World series, so A Part of Your World and Yours Truly were absolute favourites of mine. I don't actually read much romance, like I know this is the 3rd romance book I'm not talking about in this video, but I actually don't. These are really like few and far between, but this author is one that I absolutely love, like can't fault her. Like her books are just so much more than like the main 2 characters, like in their storyline and in their timeline. Like there's so many other things that are like incorporated, and of course it's a summer theme, so it works perfectly for July's TBR. This follows 2 people who believe they are like pretty much cursed in love, so they basically think if they just have a fling over the summer that it will like break the curse of like people not wanting to be with them. I think, I don't know. We're gonna find out anyway, and it's another one I'm gonna bring on holiday with me. Then next up is another like summer themed thriller, and it is Don't Look Back by Jo Spain. So this follows a very newlywed couple who've gone on a surprise honeymoon, and on the last day of the honeymoon, the wife turns around to the husband and is like, oh, by the way, I actually unalived someone before we left for this trip. Like, what would you even do with that information? I don't know. Then I imagine it's just them dealing with the fallout of this for the remainder of the book, but I do really hope a lot of it is set like abroad, because I really want to read it while I'm abroad. But I mean, if not, then I can read read it like in June when I come back to the UK, and then I can be back in the UK with them. I don't know. But this does sound really promising. This is my first book from this author, so I'll have to let you know what I think. Then next up is actually a book that I've already started reading, as it is July 1st, and it is Isolation Island by Louise Minchin. This follows 10 celebrities that take on like an ultimate survival test in remote Scotland, so the summer vibes on there because I imagine that that is pretty cold. However, it is a bit of like a survival game show type story, like it's set in a reality TV show. I'm 70 pages in and already there's been twists that like I didn't even see coming, so I feel like twists throughout the book are just a great place to start. Louise is actually a debut thriller author as well. This one isn't even out until September. She has written works of sports, I believe, in the past, but this is her first fiction and her first thriller. I also met her when I was at Hay Festival, and she kindly signed this proof for me, which I was so delighted for. I'll link my Hay Festival vlog up here if you want to see more from Louise, but this book is already been started and was like first on my July TBR pile. And then my final book on my July TBR, number 6, is She Started It by Sean Gilbert. So this follows 4 childhood best friends who go on like this dreamy bachelorette party to the Bahamas. They are so happy to be like reunited, spending time together, all the holiday vibes, and then it very quickly turns into their worst nightmare. I feel like that's the best opening for any thriller book. It's like, oh, look at this, the girls, the vibes, and then it just, yeah, just turns into a nightmare very quickly. This kind of reminds me, the plot reminds me a little bit of One of the Girls by Lucy Clark, and I feel like if it is, I would be very happy about that. So those were the 7 books I read in June and the 6 books that I want to read in July. I will of course keep you updated. If there is any books that you are like dying to see reviews of, or you know I need to just bump up my TBR, drop a comment and let me know, because I'm always after new recommendations. And if there's any of those books as well that I've mentioned that I'm going to read this month that you're a bit like, I don't know, please let me know. I need to save my time. Like, okay, I need to be sensible. Also, let me know which was your favourite book of June. I love to hear what you guys are reading as well, and I cannot wait to see you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe.